Hi, and welcome to Variety Tech Today. This time we'll be talking about a quite confusing topic, aspect ratios. Even the name might be confusing. Sounds like a foreign language, doesn't it? Well, have you heard of widescreen? Have you heard of full screen, pan and scan? A lot of times there's much misinformation and confusion. So today we're going to take a look at a handful of prime examples of different types of aspect ratios and what it all means. Now, before we start talking about that, it's important to keep in mind the shape that film originated in. The standard shape of the movie screen was originally closer to a square, but just a little bit wider. It actually wasn't until the 50s and 60s that widescreen became a thing. The premium type of widescreen, called CinemaScope and many other brand names, actually used the same shape of film, a square that was slightly wider, but it had a special lens attached to the camera. This lens would squeeze more picture into the frame. It was almost twice as wide usually. And then if it was projected at a movie theater that supported widescreen, the projector would have another attachment to it that would stretch it out so everything would be in the proper proportions, and it would be ultra wide and often curved. Today, some extra widescreen movies still use that curved lens on the camera to get that effect, but often, especially with digitally filmed movies, simple cropping is used, just putting extra black bars on the top and bottom to give it that dramatic framing. If we look at the Blu-ray packaging, it says the aspect ratio for the Star Wars movies is 2.35 to 1. That's a simple ratio, 1 being the vertical measurement. If that's 1, then the horizontal measurement would be 2.35. And ever since widescreen movies first came out, an issue has been, at first, if they were going to air on TV, then they would either have to have black bars at the top and bottom, or more often chosen was the option to do pan and scan, which refers to cropping off a large section of the picture and, if necessary, sliding around to catch the relevant portions of the action into the frame. So first of all, we're going to take a look at Star Wars Episode II, Attack of the Clones. Notice in this opening scene the framing of the shot. It's ultra widescreen. You see all the people in the room, and with room to spare on the sides. Now, notice the full screen or pan and scan version. Not all the people are seen, and it's cropped tightly, losing about half the picture. This is your typical example of pan and scan, and what it was invented for in the first place. And next up, we're going to look at larger than life. It's interesting to note that when widescreen first came out, not everyone wanted to go through the trouble of having special lenses for the camera and the theater. They just wanted to use the same equipment they already had. In order to do this, another type of widescreen was invented. It was a less wide version of widescreen, similar to the shape of widescreen TVs that everyone has today. Notice this shot from Larger Than Life. This is a typical example of what was done with non-CinemaScope widescreen films for decades, up until very recently. The filmmakers would record their film on normal film in the normal square shape that they were used to, but they would have safe zones to make sure that nothing important was on the top or bottom. Then when it was shown in the movie theaters in widescreen, the top and bottom would be cropped off. When it was released into home video, the top and bottom would be opened up. This was often called open matte. Sometimes the home video version would be zoomed in slightly. So while there is more at the top and bottom, you'll also notice that the widescreen version has a little bit more on the sides. In any case, no matter which method was used, the emphasis was always on the top and bottom having more in the open matte version. And last but not least, A Bug's Life. A Bug's Life was very unique in this aspect, pardon the pun. While it did often utilize standard cropping and pan and scan methods for its home video release, it also utilized two new methods. Because it was computer animated and all the animation data existed in the computer and could be revisited any time, the filmmakers had options to better reframe certain shots for the home video release. For instance, in one method, they would actually move characters and scenery to make them fit better into a square shape. And in another method, they would simply open up the top and bottom. So, I hope I helped clear up the muddied waters of aspect ratios. See you next time on Variety Tech Today.